G'day Heathers and gentlemen, and welcome to this, my first video of 2023. Still working on my beautiful old Schaublin 125 CNC lathe. Now, I got a couple of new goals. One is, I want to finish this year, or earlier. And that leads to a more immediate goal. I want to get all of this stuff off my table and installed this week. Now, I really hope that that actually works, because I don't want to re-record this intro. Now, last week, I was nearly finished installing my Collet release switch replacement, but I still needed to modify the striker so that this foot switch actuates the electric switch. In a previous video, I pulled this switch out from inside of the Schaublin, and it was being used for the Collet closer. It's a nice mechanical latching switch. When I was pulling it out, I sort of showed that it had this little mechanism on it. Some eagle-eyed viewers, of course, noticed that if this is associated with latching, then switching it off would give me a momentary switch. Which it does. So, let's put that back in. Right, little switch out, big switch back in. Momentary behavior. Right, that was a waste of time. Now, most of my pneumatic services take oiled air, and I don't want the oily exhaust air just blasting straight out here and oiling all the electrics. So I want to run an exhaust air line from this electrical bay here through into the bay behind, which is the coolant tank area, and have the exhaust dump into that area. Now, I bought an exhaust silencer. I know I got an elbow fitting to actually mount the thing, and I've spent hours looking for the damn thing. I obviously didn't put it in the pneumatic box, but I eventually found it under the heat shrink with the wiring numbers. I'm glad I found it, because that's the last component I need to install in that coolant compartment over the back of the lathe before the coolant tank goes in. I kind of feel like I've mentioned this before, but when I finished the first part of my Air Force apprenticeship as an aircraft mechanic, I was supposed to go and work in the skin repair shop. At that time, the Air Force was modifying the A4 Skyhawks with a bunch of new avionics called Project Kahu. And part of Project Kahu was putting new wing skins on those aircraft. The way that the landing gear is mounted on a Skyhawk, there's two beams, and these beams get located with studs which have square keys molded into them or cast into them. And unfortunately, one of them was installed wrong, so they needed some skinny guy to reach into the Skyhawk right up to the arm through an access panel, pick away at the Pro Seal, which was already covering up the nuts. It took me nearly 2 weeks just to uncover the Pro Seal on 4 nuts. Then we could unscrew them, drive the studs out, rotate them through 90 degrees, stick them back in, nuts back on, and put the Pro Seal back on. Yeah, I love jobs with no access. I guess that was a good introduction to my future circus role as an aviation contortionist. Why does it feel like that smoke, that drill's starting to smoke and smell? Not good. Alright. Or maybe it wasn't smoking, maybe it was just rubbing on that pipe. By the way, I'd like to thank my very generous Patreons. I just bought this fisheye lens with some of the Patreon money. Get some weird camera angles, huh? Exhaust tube. This way, any oil coming out through the silencer can just drip into the coolant tank. I'm not even sure if I'm going to use coolant, so fine. Okay, that's a bit of a milestone, because the next thing I need to do is disconnect all of the cables to the machine. Then I can finally install these control cabinets. Mail time. A very nice personal letter from Willem. Thanks very much. Now, Willem contacted me because he had a couple of things he'd like to send to me, and oh wow, now that is beautiful. Getting to the point soon where I'm going to need to level this lathe, aren't I? There's no markings on this to indicate the actual accuracy, but I'm guessing quite. A couple of nice big solid toe clamps to go on the maho. Willem saw my video where a part moved because I had it locked down with only a single pair of toe clamps. He writes, I was supposed to have a set of toe clamps. To my shame, I must admit, I cannot find the second one, if there ever was. He writes, one toe clamp in the hand is better than two birds in the bush. You're certainly right there, Willem. Holding things with 3 points is definitely going to be more secure than with two. The other thing Willem sent me here are precision 14mm blocks. Always tramming in my mill vise was getting annoying. I already had that on my to-do list to make up some keys. I'll just need to set this up, just broaden those slots a little bit, and then bolt them in. That's great. So thanks a lot for your generosity, Willem. Guys, I'll put a link to his Instagram down below. Go and check it out. He's done some really cool stuff. Well, this is of course the easy part. Disconnecting and pulling it apart's always going to be easier. What are the chances of it working again when I put things back together? Right, let's try and get this first panel in. This is where I hope I don't find out some big interference problem, which I didn't see coming, because that would suck. Before I put the door on, there's a few services I can already hook up. Exhaust air. I think I might come down underneath with that one. Next I've got the two air supplies. The back one is oiled, the front one is dry. Not very elegant routing, but oh well. I was also able to wire up this main motor power. Right, let's try hanging this door. Man, this stuff gets heavy. Whoopsie daisy, wait a minute. Whoops, I forgot the Ethernet cable which connects the Mesa cards to the computer. So another $1 million question, is this door going to close? Right, let's just stuff all these cables in for now. First little check here. Well, on the first look, the only interference I seem to have is this cable here. Looks like it's hitting down here. I might have to make up like a 90-degree version of it or something. But it's super cool that I finally get my bench back once I clean up a little. With that connector disconnected, what's the clearance look like? Oh, cool. Right, well there we have it. Patreons and YouTube members, you know who you are. Please join me after this video. Now I don't have cables off the edge of the machine anymore, I can finally move it. Okay, maybe I won't lift it because all of the oil's leaked out of my cheap and nasty pallet truck. Is this hydraulic full port? It's great owning a mechanical device which doesn't even really have a decent instruction manual. I went looking for it. Now to bleed the system, should just have to pump it through like 10 times. Now it's lifting better. Whoever thought it was a good idea to tile the floor in the basement, and tile it badly at that, was wrong. It wasn't a good idea. It sucks. In the Air Force, we used to have to do hangar sweeps. It was kind of like formation sweeping, with a whole line of guys, each with big wide brooms, walking through the hangar, sweeping the whole area. I used to kind of like doing that. It was kind of fun. Right, let's get this back installed. The motor's got the Swiss 5-pin 3-phase connector on it. I'll just keep it. It works. Now if I remember rightly, it's a bit of a pain because you've got this pipe which has to go into here. I might get a bit of string just to tie that up. There's this kind of tree for the coolant to come out. So that off. So that goes here. Well, I'll mount this for now. I may well find that I need this T-slot more for video. Man, that's one rigid pipe. Stainless steel flex tube, just for a bit of coolant. That was made to last. With that now done, I guess I can move the lathe much closer to the wall, which is going to be really nice to work on. This really is quite a heavy beast. You can hear all the tiles cracking and chipping each time they drive over them. Well, cool. Just moving that back to the wall and this way a little bit makes the shop feel a lot more spacious. Well, this week's video was one of those 2 steps back to go 1 step forward kind of videos, but hey, needed to be done. Happy with the result. Next up, I need to wire all of those cables back up and test everything again, but I think it's time for me to edit this week's video. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time.